Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Bill. Thank you, everyone, for the opportunity to share some insights with you this day. My name is Dr. Karambu, and I am the founder and president of Triji Foundation and International Peace Initiatives. It's a pleasure to be with you. IPI, International Peace Initiatives, has been a student shoulder-to-shoulder NGO partner for the last 11 years. And we've covered a lot of ground together, and we have grown and learned just as they have learned and grown working together with us. I come from Kenya, and I come from Meru, which is kind of in the central part of Kenya. It's on the slopes of Mount Kenya. It's a beautiful place, and I say that is where I like to do my utu. That is my living, my life. And Triji Foundation works to regenerate, to work with people to regenerate their highest selves. And what I'm going to share with you today is actually a lived experience. I worked here in Kenya with International Peace Initiatives for 9 years before I realized that I did not have an office. I usually, excuse me, I used to walk to where people are working and seated in their offices. And so I was a bit surprised when I discovered that. And I was like, how did I last 9 years without an office? And then I realized that I was thinking from the old mind frame of what leadership is, and must I have an office as a leader, and what does that office look like? So in mainstream leadership thinking, we've been taught to be masters of change. We've been invited to hold authority. We've been invited to drive power and, you know, to stay on top of things. And it never really quite worked like that for me. So when I went to school and then they started telling us, oh, we must drive results. And it felt to me like we were being told, work as hard as you can, and your life doesn't matter. We just want results. Or when we were told that we must ensure accountability. You know, you feel like someone is saying, I'm going to micromanage you. I don't care about your life. I just want results. And then we were told to execute flawlessly, like mistakes are not allowed. And when we make mistakes, we feel like failures. And so, I had to think about the kind of leader the work had taught me or has taught me. Note I'm saying I had to pay attention to the kind of leader the work has revealed, and that is what I want to share today. It's about inspiring leadership for the now generation of leaders. Because for the longest time, I was told I am the next generation leader. And I kept wondering, when will next come? When most of the leaders, older leaders, don't want to give up their positions for young people to, you know, step into the leader now. So we kept saying the next generation of leaders. And I kept asking the youth that now I started working with, can you tell me, when our leaders tell us that you're the next generation of leaders, have you ever thought about when next is going to come? And they'll be puzzled. So the old model also is expert driven. Someone knows better than me. Of course, there's always someone who knows better than us, but this is the mindset that tells us that we don't know much. An expert, someone from the outside, must come and study our situation and then tell us what we need to do. So this old model was also problem focused because there's something that needs to be fixed all the time. It is also very prescriptive because it assumes the people that we are serving don't know what they want or what they need. So we must prescribe for them a solution, just like the doctor prescribes medicine because they know our bodies better than we do. And then this system is linear and predictable. It is self-contained. The leader has to be the one who is holding the whole house or the whole organization together. It's very exclusive and extractive. Everything is about bringing to me and leaving everybody else out. It's controlling, and it's based on power over. It's based on trade-offs, and it's very short-term focused. So I had to, and then I was told that I had to really be rational, analytical thinking, critical thinker, and all that stuff. And you're always thinking about where our organization is going next. Hence this thing about the next generation leader. And so when I started working with women living with HIV and AIDS, people who think they are going to die anytime, and orphans, children without parents, I had to think about what kind of leader I wanted to be with them. And I also knew that I didn't want to be that old model leader. I wanted people not to stand on my shoulders forever. I wanted them to step into the power that I knew that they had. I wanted them to step into the leader that they are. So my premise is everyone is a leader. If I'm given the right resources and tools, I can step into the leader that I'm supposed to be. So we created a way of speaking with ourselves that I called the New Story Dialogue. You can also call it the Regenerative Dialogue. And it is a forum that helps us think about who we are. Not who we are from what the society has called us, or from the programming and marking of the systems within which we live. And so when I know who I am, through peeling all the layers of someone else's marking and naming, the next thing that I have to think about is understand the systems within which I have lived that have programmed and conditioned me in certain ways. I need to understand how that conditioning has taken place, so that then it's a process of knowing also how I myself, as a system, stops me. And so when I know who I am and what stops me, I am invited to create a new story about who I am, when I don't define myself from the things that I do, but from really the leadership gift that I came to serve in this world. And once I know then what my new story is, I look for like-minded people so that we can engage in actions that enhance this regeneration. And as we do the work, then we think about who are we becoming? What's the emergent beingness that we are bringing that is different than the old story? And then in the end, the evolving becoming is, what have we learned? What have we unlearned? What is calling to be relearned, so that we can grow and evolve? And once we get to that level then, and for example, when I was working, building the children's home, when it was complete, and I reflected on, now that we have a house, we are bringing 10 kids, who then am I again? It's a spiral of regeneration, regenerative dialogue within myself. And so then when I work like this, I thought about, so then if that is the old model, what is the regenerative model that the work has taught me? And this has been about working with the people, bringing or building community. It is not just about me. It is about the people that I'm serving, recognizing that they are also serving me in certain ways. So it is a co-creative process. We don't focus on problems. We look at challenges as possibilities calling to be invited in. They are opportunities for growth and for evolving. We did not work on a prescriptive kind of template. I was very aware that the lived experience cannot be predictable. It cannot be prescriptive. It is emergent, because it shows up every moment that I'm showing up in my life. And so this approach cannot be linear, rather it is circular. And I say ambiguous because we can't know everything. And something does not only have one dimension, there are different aspects of one entity or one thing. So it is circular and ambiguous. It is not self-contained, but interdependent. It is inclusive, and it is self-organizing. We don't talk about power over, but we talk about power with and through others. We don't talk about trade-offs, it's about synergies, building synergies, bringing in the good that everybody has, putting it together in a basket and evolving something absolutely different, but beautiful that each one of us has contributed to create. It is not a short-term process, but it is intergenerational. We are interconnected, and it is embodied being and knowing. It is lived. It is something that is not coming from outside, but it's something that is growing from within me. And we don't talk about the next, we talk about now, because now is what I have. What am I gonna do with it? And so when I worked in this regenerative way, I realized that there are certain things I have been taught and learned in community that need to be redefined, terms, especially if they make others small or they create limiting scenarios for me and others. Those terms need to be redefined. We need to de-stereotype myths that we've grown up with. The mainstream thinking seems to me to be embedded on fear and distrust of another. So we choose a positive mindset, the same one that looks at problems not as problems, but opportunities for growth and evolving. And then we talk about not living in fear, but in love. An authentic heart set, and recognizing that I am here to serve a cause larger than myself. So a lot of us think that we are serving a cause. My question is, how do you know there is not a cause that is calling you to serve? It's like saying Karambu lives a life. But what about if the truth is that there's a life that is calling to be lived through Karambu? That totally shifts how I show up in this service that I'm co-creating with other people. And when we think like that, it's a co-creation of a new story every day, regenerating, renewing, reclaiming every moment the essence of who we are supposed to be, that societal conditioning has taken away or stolen from us. And this is what I call embodied Utu. Utu is a Swahili word that means humaneness. I'm sure you've heard of Ubuntu. I am because you are. Ubuntu is about who I am in community. Utu is about how do I be that Ubuntu in society. That's why I called it authentic being, actually beingness, if you want. And so when it is embodied humaneness, then you realize that the work that I do, the work that you do, hopefully, is about all of us. It's about being fully human in community. It's about being who I am, it's because of who you are, and vice versa. It's about knowing that there's no separatedness, that we are known, the universe knows us, there's a reason we are here, and that is the gift that we bring is what we've come to share. We respond to life, not react to life. We react to life from the conditioning, but we respond to life from the embodied Utu-ness, that is who we are. There's only unconditional love, no fear, and we need to trust life, capital L. We need to trust the process. And when we live like this, we realize that we are called to cultivate networks and foster community, that there are multiple levels of scale of working. Things don't just scale up, things ripple out, touching all the contextual elements within which we work. We realize that we are called to make space for self-organizing so that people can build their own skills and become their own regenerators of their lives. Challenges are opportunities. There are new possibilities calling to be invited in. So they are not things to run away from or to be afraid of. Regeneration is a process that takes perseverance, persistence, presence, and proaction. And grounded in who I know I am, through that regenerative dialogue of creating a new story every moment, my roots are deep and there is no need to fear the winds of change. And so I call this a now generation leader. a now generation leader because we want everyone to step into the leader that they are right now. And this kind of leader ignites the fire of ethical leadership in everybody that they're in contact with, but it has to begin with myself. Am I an ethical leader before I step out to be that for someone else? And therefore, this kind of leader recognizes that they do not get people to believe in them. They find ways to get people to believe in themselves. And you can imagine if we have a population of people who know who they are, who know what their regenerative new story is every moment, that truly is going to build amazing relationships that will help us transform our communities. And therefore, I share this African proverb that says, judge not each day by the harvest, but by the seeds we plant. It's not about that extractive thing of, I want the largest job, I want the biggest car, I want the biggest house. It's not the harvest, it's in the seeds that we plant every day in the lives of the people that we work with. And so, a new gen leader then, the invitation is not to seek the leader in you because you're already a leader. And I know this because in working with my kids, orphans, one of them recently told me, I may be an orphan, but I'm not the one who is dead. I may be an orphan, but I'm not the one who is dead. They recognize they are whole, pure, complete, and enough as they are. It's not their fault that they don't have parents, and they are not their circumstances. So the invitation is not to seek the leader in you because you're already a leader. Rather, it is to seek and find all the ways in which you have blocked your leading and choose every moment to be the leader that you're meant to be now. And so I leave you with this that I call the now generation leader mantra. I started by saying that the old story frame is based on fear. It's based on just speaking and generally not fulfilling actions because we have to be a certain way when we hold this authority, when we have power over people and things like that. So this is the mantra that I want to leave with all of us, that our dreams be bigger than our fears, our actions speak louder than our words. We work to excel and not to compete. We live by choice, not by chance. We are inspired and motivated rather than manipulated. We choose to listen to our inner wisdom because that is where our regenerative energy and power comes from. It's not coming from outside, but it has to come from within. So I choose to listen to my inner voice rather than the jumbled voices of everyone else. And I dare trust, I dare dream, I dare do, I dare be. So help me God. Thank you.
Karambu, thank you. Karambu, we have a presidential debate tonight. I'm wondering if you could join that.
I wish I could, but they talk over each other. They don't allow each other to say something substantial. So I wouldn't know how to fit in there, but I'd like to share your insights.
Right. I mean, honestly, when I'm listening, I'm looking forward to getting the voices of people here, but I'm listening to you and I'm nodding my head. The principles are they're empowering, but they are easy to hear because I think they are so naturally aligned with who we are meant to be at our best. They are aligned with our sociology, they're aligned with our psychology, they are aligned with our spirit. It's interesting to see that, and at the same time, at least in the United States, to see the struggle we have in the United States for our leaders to look beyond themselves or even to look beyond their tribe. Yeah. And here we are, right, facing an existential issue of the environment. And this really is all of us. And even at that level, there is still a struggle. So I guess I will start with asking you, what do you think? Why do you think that struggle exists? Again, at least in the US, it seems so clear to me that, okay, folks, the game is over. It's time we all play together here, because there is something at stake, and the stakes are the same for all of us. Do you have a comment on that? Why it's so difficult?
It's everywhere. I see a lot of that also here in my own country. But I think the struggle is so because we have forgotten who we are. We have been so programmed by the systems that man has created that we've really forgotten who we are and why we came here. You know, we live in our heads and creating all these things so that we make our lives comfortable and easy and everything. So even if we get all the machines, the robots and everything working for us, what are we going to do with our time? You know, that is what I keep asking myself. But when we remember who we are and why we are here, then we will start, you know, like stepping into this life is more than just the things that we create here. This life is much more than the I that I am by myself. I think, in my view, I think that life was supposed to be beautiful, easy. It isn't supposed to be a burden, but because human beings like to suffer, because their premise is problem-based, they have to be fixing something, including ourselves, then we've created this suffering for ourselves. And all I'll say, Bob, is when I remember who I am, and it's not just about me or about my comfort, we are more fully human when we work together as a community. When we see the beauty of building relationships and seeing the other in myself, I think it will make it easier. I don't know what we will need to awaken us to that awareness that this life is not a chore, it's not a punishment, it's a gift. How do I make use of that gift?
I could keep going back and forth with you, as you know, because we have done this many times, but I really would like to get some other perspectives in from the panel or off screen.
Good morning, Dr. Karambu. I have a quick question for you. One of the things that I saw in your video is that you ascribe to this feeling of Ubuntu. Would you mind explaining that a little bit more and telling us how that affects your work?
Beautiful. Good question. Thank you, Kim. Ubuntu is an African philosophy that says, I am because you are, and because you are, I am. It also teaches me that I am fully human in community. So community is very important for me. I found it very difficult to live in America because there was no community for me and everybody was just minding their own business. And here in Kenya, we have a community within which we live. And so Ubuntu tells me that I cannot be said to be wealthy if there's one person in my community who doesn't have food or who has a need that has not been met. There's no way I can say I am prosperous and a family member, a community member is suffering when I have all these things. So Ubuntu for me is a place of remembering and a place of reclaiming who I am in community. And people think that when we live in community, it steals one's individualism. But I think that living in community enhances my individualism because what I learn from the community and what the community learns from me builds us and gets us to another level. And so that is what Ubuntu is. Fundamentally, I am because you are. And because you are, I am. There's no separation between you and I and me and you if we stop and think and see it. So I took it a step higher and started talking about utu. Utu is a Swahili word that means humaneness. We've been taught to think and do things, but no one talks about the beingness that informs that thinking and that doing. And when I say people have forgotten who they are, it's because they live in the head and they've forgotten their heart. They've forgotten why they are here. They've forgotten their utu, their humaneness that informs all these other ways of being. So I hope that answers your question, but Ubuntu is a philosophy that undergirded everybody's being and acting in the community, always, premised on the understanding that the foundation of who I am as whole, pure, complete, and enough is embedded in my community. And my community cannot be what it can be at its best if I am removed from it. So everybody knew they had a critical part and role to play so that the community could become all we needed it to become. Kim, did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much. That was perfect. I appreciate that so much.
Thank you. You were so inspiring to listen to. So I'm wondering if you could give some advice to your listeners today in terms of how to sort of start this journey to reclaim their sense of themselves and of community, especially here in the United States. And I think it's important that the people, it's not necessarily what you're doing, but how you do it. So just again, if you could speak to that, sort of how people could sort of start this journey to reclaim themselves and their sense of community.
Thanks, Jean. Thank you. I hope I said your name correctly. That's a hard question because I don't feel like I like to advise people. Like when the women I started working with came and said, oh, how can you help us? I said, I don't know how to help people. I can only hold a space where you can see the power in you and what is possible for you. However, I'll try to answer your question in this way. When I came from the States as this educated Kenyan woman, and I knew my calling was to work with orphans and women living with HIV and AIDS, because at that time, they were the most marginalized and excluded members of my community. And I had some friends, family members, and other people that I don't know who were struggling with this thing. I had to really stop and think about whether I was going to come to them with this mindset that, oh, I have a PhD, I have some education, and so I'm coming to tell you what to do. And in my classes, I had an excellent professor called Professor Mary Jane Collier. We did a lot of intercultural communication and how that's a site of conflict. That's a site of academic pride and things like that. So I really had to think, like reclaim myself. That cycle of that dialogue, regenerative dialogue, started by being a transformative dialogue for me, so that I know who I am and who I need to be with the people that I'm working with. And having studied development, and we were taught that an expert must come and tell us stuff, I really was very careful in knowing who I am and who I want to show up as with the people I was working with. So really, to answer that question, it is to go within yourself. First of all, in understanding who I am, who you are, you have to understand what's your calling, what's your gift, what gives you the most joy when you do it. That's your gift to the world. But you cannot be a gift to the world if you haven't been a gift to yourself. So we have a lot of limiting thoughts and things that our conditioning has given us. We need to deal with that first of all. I have to unexcusably love myself and who I am. I have to totally love my calling. I have to totally love life so that I can be that for myself and someone else. So, Jean, it begins with knowing who I am and finding what gives me the most joy. I don't have to change the whole world at the same time, but I say, when I change myself, that's one person. When I am changed, I'm like a mirror. I hold a space for someone else to see what is possible for themselves so that they can choose to be that. So it's not something that someone has to come and tell me and advise me and, you know, all that stuff. I step within myself. Let me know who I am and what I want to be in the world. When I change myself, I give someone else the permission to be changed themselves. So let it begin with myself. When it becomes overwhelmingly impossible to do, it is when we are not focusing on the power within me so that I can bring it forth for myself and for someone else, not selfishly for myself, but I need to stand on a space of strength and power and knowing who I am so that I can be the transformation I want to see in the world. Fear, reaction to life will never get us to where we need to be so that that transformation can take place in the world. But I have to work that within me first. Then I'll find the stepping stone for the next, and then the next. And you find that transformation is not just one person acting out. It is what I mirror, reflect, ripple out so that others can be the same also.
Thank you.
Hi, I have a question. What role does voting play in regeneration, and how can we inspire the younger generations to vote and ensure that they're exercising their right?
Did you say what role does voting?
Yes, like voting, being politically active, yes.
You'll be surprised that, or probably you won't be surprised, that the reason why I started on this leadership journey is because I ran for public office as the first woman member of parliament in my constituency since independence, and that was in 2007. And as I went around my constituency speaking with people, they were just interested in the money that they thought I was going to dish out like the other leaders were, my other colleagues were dishing out. And that is where I started thinking about the citizen and the role that I, as a citizen, plays in changing the terrain of politics, leadership, governance in my country. And I started telling people the roads that we don't have, the hospitals that we don't have, the change that we want to see that we don't have is because I didn't vote or I sold my vote. So the role of voting is critical for changing the things that are not working in my community. And that is where it begins. So someone comes and gives me money and I sell my vote. And when they go to parliament, they say, well, I have to bring back my money that I gave all of you. And so there'll be no roads, there'll be no hospitals, there'll be no nothing, schools. So I would say to the people, we are the ones to blame for the change we don't see, not the guy or the girl that we voted, because we voted them in. They didn't take themselves there, unless they stole the votes, of course. That's another story. But I have to take the first step by voting the change that I want to see. So it begins with me. So your question is, I as a voter, that vote counts for everything that I want to see regenerated in my community or in my nation.
Thank you so much.
So if you're still voting and people are listening here, please go and vote. Please go and vote. If you want to see change in America, please go and vote.
The entire video that I watched of you, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then as you were speaking again, I just like constant mind blown to see the connection between, I'm a therapist and I use narrative therapy modality. And so it's that regenerative story approach of rewriting your story and looking at the systems that have created barriers and how to rewrite those. in a way that brings your power out. And so one of the question that Jean asked was tickling me, because as a leader, as each of us are leaders, and especially during this time of COVID, where we're literally, you mentioned how lots of people are just in their heads, and we are literally just a bunch of heads on a screen. And so looking at how can we as leaders in this specific time move from our heads back into our bodies and back into our hearts and back into community. And when we can't literally necessarily be in touch and in community and in connection in the way that we normally are. So I would love just maybe some insight or some tools that you've used to help yourself in these times where we're a lot more technically connected and literally just heads on screens, to be able to connect to our hearts and to our purpose. And I noticed one of the questions from Felix was, I want to know how can one get to know who they are and their purpose actually? And I feel like that is moving from head to heart and body and community. And so I'd love to hear, what are your practices as a leader to do that?
Oh my gosh, I don't know where to begin, but I'll answer it in general. First of all, how to know who I am from the top to the bottom. The practices that I use, I have certain mantras, words that I read, that I tell myself. I listen to myself a lot in meditation, in silence, and I get certain insights about who I am and what I want my day to look like, or a certain situation to look like. I don't know how I can explain this, but what I do is I literally sit in silence when I have something that is really bothering me. And I first stay in silence, and I listen from within. And then I say what I want, what is the change that I want to see in that situation. So if it is money I want for, or I need to buy food for the kids, that is what I say. If I want to complete a certain building, that is what I say. If I want healing in my body, there is pain somewhere, that is what I say. That silence takes you to a place that I don't know how to explain to anyone. But by practicing it, you can get there yourself, because it's something that is available to everybody. But silence is an amazing tool for transformation, silence. And that is what I use. And I also read a lot of positive literature. And I also, I have defined who God is for me. He is not a man. He's both a man, woman, everything. And so I all this goodness that bigger thing is what I bring in my life. And because I know that divine essence lives in me, so that is what I cultivate every day, to be that for myself and for others. Now, what was your first question? I answered the last one.
As a leader, just how, I guess that was pretty much the main gist. I think you did a great job. Just as a leader, as we're all connecting in different ways and doing work within the community and within ourselves, what are those self-care practices that can help us connect with our purpose and connect with who we are?
Yeah, especially within the context of COVID-19. So I will own that, because I run a children's home with 63 children. We stayed together as a family. So I really didn't experience the separation when everybody went indoors, because we were always at home, all of us. And we never experienced, at least I never experienced, any loneliness. In our community also, because everybody was trying to keep to themselves, when you walked around, you could stop and talk to someone as long as you kept distancing and stuff like that. So we were never really quite separate. At least I could see someone in my village walking to the shop or whatever, going to the shamba or stuff like that. We kept distancing, we washed our hands, we did all these things, but there was no sense of that's, separation. So what I would say to my kids who are in the States, was talking to us. You know, like you have to look for someone who is either family or friend who can withstand your talking to them almost every day, you know, so that at least you have a connection there. And the second thing that I was very particular about, because of the kids that were in the home, was not to create fear in my mind or in my spirit, but to recognize that this was a situation, that was how COVID-19 was. What am I choosing to do with it? So instead of getting stressed and wondering, gosh, where am I going to get food for 63 kids for the next 3 months? Schools are closed. And instead of beating myself with stress and things like that, I would give thanks. I would be grateful that I had that family to work with me, to stay together in these hard times. Seriously, gratitude rather than complaining and looking at the problem saved us, because we never lacked food. I'm telling you, 63 kids in one house, you had people complaining and there were only 4 or 5 in their homes. We cooked for 65 people every day for the last 7 months, and we've never lacked a meal. And people would just come and drop food at the gate. People would send us money. I never complained, but I always gave thanks. It is an attitude. It is an attitude. It's a state of mind and state of heart. So that is what I would encourage people to do. Even if you're in a place alone, cultivate talking to someone, cultivate a sense of gratitude, and don't bring fear in your head. I would tell the kids, you know, one day, each one of us will die. So why bring fear in a disease saying, oh, it has come to finish us? We'll finish, we'll die one day somehow. If it's COVID-19, let it be. But I have a role to play in keeping myself and everybody else safe. And so we cultivated that kind of positive energy. And then because we are a family, we'll go in our vans, we have 2 vans, and we'll take the kids to the farm about an hour's drive from here, and we'd work the farm together. We wouldn't allow outsiders to come and join us. And now we've farmed our land, we've built shelters where we go and stay. It's like a campsite. So we created work for ourselves. And we had this conversation about don't be afraid because we'll die one day somehow. Let's live our life now. That's the now leader thing. It's live my life now fully, because I don't know when I'm going to die. But fear, be mindful of fear, because that is what kills all of us. Even before we die, we are dead because we are afraid of waking up every morning. So cultivate relationship with yourself and with others, not fear, but gratitude and love for life, knowing that now is what matters. If I have life now, I'll live it fully, no matter what. COVID-19 notwithstanding, we have done a lot of work during these COVID-19 days because we chose life and life moving on more than fear. That's all I'll say for now.
Karambu, thanks so much. Yeah, it would be nice if we could all just sit in silence right now, right? I guess I will encourage everybody to do that sometime today, and ask yourself how you might take the messages of today to bigger and bigger audiences, to your community. This notion of gratitude, this notion of connecting your head with your heart, is surely something that all of us can take from this. Karambu, I am so grateful for our relationship, for our partnership over the years. Here we are together. It's amazing, right? 11 years ago when we met, and the impact you're having on the world is just beautiful to see. And you know, the whole message about leadership, I'm hoping that all of us on the screen and all of us off the screen can and go forward with it and help others be who they ought to be. So thanks so much. You can tell I don't want this to end, but it has to, and it has to for now. But so many of us, like I said, I'm going to encourage all of us to take this beyond. And in support of that, this session is being recorded, and we will produce it somehow. So in the next couple of weeks, so that it will be available to all of you. So perhaps you can use this with your communities, and whether it's just the introduction from Karambu and her message, or whether it's the whole discussion, but at least gives you a little tool perhaps as a prompt. So with that, thank you so much, Karambu. And Bill, you probably have things for us in the chat box maybe, or?
Lots of love. Yeah, I'll just put in the chat box. That's the link I shared at the beginning. So Karambu, that's the resources. I know a lot of people that were on the panel watched the videos that you suggested in preparation for this. So I shared those on there in case any of our attendees also want to watch those videos, as well as information about international peace initiatives in case people want to learn more about that. And I would just also add to anyone on our panel or anyone who's listening that we've started thinking of connection and connecting digitally. We can't be in Kenya, but we have a program right now where we have high school students from the US who are working with students in Kenya right now, both at the elementary and high school level. We're meeting every Sunday morning. And it's been a great exchange. It's been a great way for students to find a way to connect. And, you know, as you were mentioning, Karambu, to feel that connection despite just being on the screen. So if you're interested in doing these Sunday morning tutoring sessions, just reach out to me. I'll put my email in the chat there, and we can talk more. But it's been a really fun way for all of us to stay connected when we're feeling a bit lost on our screens here.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks,
you. Dr. K.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.